Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. All right, first question. How do you like your steak? Rare or blue? Again, blue only if I know it's a good cut of meat. For those who don't know the difference, blue is basically raw. It's where you just cook the outside edges and it is completely raw in the middle. Some chefs will do it, some will not. Otherwise, I like rare, and that's how I prefer my steak, and I've always liked it that way. Not a big fan of well done steak. It's just how I like it, and always have. And I'm also one of those people that I don't like seasoning and stuff on my steak. I can eat a good rare steak with no sauce of any type. And again, it's just what I like. All right, next question. I'm dealing with a bulging disc, L5S1. What exercises can I do to help strengthen that area? Of course, someone told him to, again, go see a physical therapist, and he said he did that. It didn't really help. And I don't like to give a lot of advice to people with back injuries, but what I will say is that with my own clients, I do have a client with a similar issue that he developed it years ago. I've had him as a really long-term client, like 2 years at this point, and he has a reverse hyper, and we use a reverse hyper. We do banded good morning, so anytime he's sitting for a long time, like when he's driving in his car or anything, I have him take a mini band with him and do high rep good mornings with it after sitting down for a long period of time to just do a set. And he uses his reverse hyper pretty much every single day. And that's about the best you can hope for in terms of exercises. But you do need to consult a physical therapist, but make sure that you get a physical therapist who works specifically with lifters. In my experience, because I have had multiple clients who have physical therapists, the ones that see physios who do not specialize in people who lift weights, I have been completely unimpressed. It's a complete waste of their money. They seem to get literally nothing from it. Okay, they don't get anything from it. Like, there's no point in even bothering. If you're someone who's going to lift, those sort of physical therapists who don't specifically deal with lifters are a waste of your time. They're a complete waste of your time. They're not going to be able to help you in any way. Nothing will improve. That's been my personal experience dealing with clients. If you get a client who has one who lifts themselves and they're used to dealing with people who do squats and deadlifts, I've seen some pretty seriously good results. I have a client like that right now, guy's in his 40s, decently strong guy too. But he has some injuries and stuff from high school football and stuff from years ago, and he has a really good physical therapist, and we combine that with my training and everything, and he's gotten phenomenal results. Like he's seen vast improvements from having a physical therapist who works with lifters and who lifts themselves. So it really, really matters in this context, and I cannot stress that enough. You need to make sure that your physio knows how to work with this population, because if they don't, it's going to be a waste of your time and money. Right? It's going to be a waste. But if they do, then you'll probably see some pretty good results combined with your lifting. All right, next question. When doing max effort floor press, should we pause for a second or do it with a controlled touch and go? I would personally, I would like to see my lifters do a brief pause. However, here's our caveat. It needs to be maintained tightly. If you pause on the floor press and you get loose at all, you can't do this. You're not going to be able to pause. It's going to mess you up. It's going to pull you out of your groove. So you need to be able to control it completely and maintain tension on your pecs when you touch. And by a pause, we can't pause for a long time on the floor press because you will get loose if you try to hold it there for 2 seconds or something. So what I would like to see is like a half-second pause, just to know that it came to a complete stop, very brief pause, and then drive it up. But again, while maintaining tightness, and that's the tricky part, especially when we go for a max. So it's something that's worth practicing on your rep work, right? It's worth practicing on your rep work. And how do we know we maintain tightness? To where we don't just crash into the floor. So you have a controlled eccentric, and if you practice this on your rep work a bit, to where just when the triceps touch the floor, you stop. You don't try to sink it further. You just pause and hold it there with the triceps touching the floor, right? You don't let it come all the way down and compress the tricep. Just contact the floor. right? And as soon as they touch, you hold it there and you maintain isometric tension for that half count and then drive it up. That's what I would personally like to see, but a lot of times we rush it. Some touch and go happens and stuff on a floor press on ME day. Because again, max effort being what it is. But again, it's a matter of what would I consider to be ideal would be the brief pause maintaining tightness. And again, you'll need to practice it on your rep work, because if you don't, you're probably going to mess it up when you get kind of psyched up a bit to do a max. You may mess it up. So that's fine. Make it work. All right, next question. Thoughts on pause good mornings? Okay, this is going to be a very nuanced answer. Because this is not going to be straightforward. If you are talking about just doing it in the air without physically contacting anything, so nothing with a hard or a soft stop, I don't think you should pause at all. Why? Because the good morning is potentially a stretch reflex or a myotatic reflex exercise for the hamstrings. You're potentially going to lose that stretch reflex in the hamstring. Now, some people might say, well, I'm already doing RDLs. I don't need a second stretch reflex movement for my hamstring. All right, no problem there. That's fine. But again, we've got to ask, what is it you're trying to get out of the good morning? You are losing some hamstring potential if you try to pause with it in the air. Also, it's harder to maintain that tightness that we want, and you might get extra rounding in the back because you're trying to bring it to a stop instead of reversing it and hold it for a second. Again, it can create some unideal positions. So if we're talking about just doing it free floating in the air, I don't recommend it, because again, it's not going to be optimal. You're going to lose the stretch reflex. You're going to lose some potential for hamstring development there. So the question becomes, would we ever pause? Oh yeah, if you got pins for a hard stop, better yet slings or chains, and you come to pins and then you drive it back off of there. And even better would be chains, because it's going to be easier on your joints. You're not going to hit them. Chains or those nylon slings like I have. Now, if you've got a setup like that and you can come to a complete stop and then drive it back up, it may give you better development of your spinal erectors, and that would include all the way up to the T-spine. That might be in the case of saying, okay, I am doing this to be slightly more back specific, right? And a less concern with hamstrings, then it makes a lot of sense. So when would that be appropriate? For deadlifts, right? If you're trying to improve your deadlift, you're trying to build your erectors up for a stronger deadlift, that makes sense, doesn't it? This becomes valuable. Now, you are sacrificing a little bit of potential hamstring development to make it more back focused if you do this. And that's fine, as long as you know why you're doing it. As long as you know why you're doing it, it's perfectly acceptable. So again, the answer is very nuanced to this. It really depends on what you are trying to get out of the good morning and how your equipment is set up. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.